it's Eric Pappenfuss. It is almost Halloween, and Amanda, today we have a spooky Halloween-themed buy day.
I'll say.
And we are in the Scholar Underground, which looks completely transformed, wouldn't you say? Well, the famous ancients are still dead, but now they're covered in cobwebs. And we want everybody to know that this Tuesday, for Halloween trick-or-treating, you can come to the Scholar and get candy. We're going to be open late, till 8 o'clock, and you can experience the spooky underground with spooky chained and talking books. We also have a brand new t-shirt. Look at this one, Amanda. Designed by our own staff here, and perfect for the Halloween gift giving.
Oh, yes.
We specialize in dead authors, and I've got some more dead authors today for you for Buy Day. And that's right, we're going to get right to it. But here we're going to do something a little bit different, okay? I have 3 books in that box today, Amanda. One was owned by a pirate, one was owned by a murderer, and one was owned by a witch. And just to mix it up a little bit in honor of Halloween, I'm going to let you choose the order in which we describe these 3 books. Amanda, which would you like to see first?
I would like to see the murderers.
Okay,
first.
let's start with the murderer. I have to say the murderer book is my favorite. Now, when I bought this book, Amanda, I knew what the book was, but I did not know that it was owned by a murderer. So here is the book. It is a classic 19th century book on chemistry. If you open up the book, we'll get to the title page. I'll bring it to you in the light. It is a manual of chemistry. It is the 3rd edition. It is widely improved, and it is by John White Webster. And here is some images of Webster's lab. Webster was a professor of chemistry at Harvard University, and this was published in 1839 when he was at the height of his teaching powers. Now, Webster loved fireworks, and there are lots of stories like when Edward Everett was inaugurated as the president of Harvard. It was Webster who set off the fireworks. And there's a whole section in here on how to make your own fireworks, which is pretty neat for a chemistry text. But as a text, it's also really interesting, Amanda, because this is the first book in English to describe this new process of photography that was invented by a gentleman by the name of Daguerre. And it talks about how you take your silver copper plates and the glass and you develop a daguerreotype. And this was new technology then, but Webster had it and he put it in the addenda for his 3rd edition. Now, I say it was owned by a murderer because in the front of the book, it turns out that the book is in fact inscribed by Webster himself. And this I didn't know when I bought it, either did the person who sold it, I got it at auction, but that is actually a JWW, and that is how he signed his name, John White Webster.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know about the story of the trial of John White Webster, but it was perhaps the most famous murder trial of 19th century America. And it happens that over in George's, in the collectibles room, we have a copy of the pamphlet, which basically had the trial transcripts when it first came out. And this was issued in 1850. Now, the story is that Webster owed a lot of money to a rich Boston Brahmin by the name of George Parkman. And if you're a Buy Day viewer, you'll be interested to know that George Parkman was the uncle of Francis Parkman, whose house we visited on Beacon Hill. Webster, rather than pay back Parkman, it is said, confronted Parkman and ended up killing Parkman and cutting up his body in his very chemistry laboratory. And in honor of Halloween, we have this wonderful skeleton here. And the trial is famous partly, Amanda, because it's the first trial to use forensic evidence to determine the body. They actually took parts of Parkman's teeth and they spoke to the dentist and they identified Parkman's body. Now, sadly, if you look throughout, this is a diagram of Webster's studio. They found little bits and parts in the furnace where he attempted to dispose of the body. Slowly but surely, it was quite something. And here's an image of Parkman himself that went up on wanted posters when they were looking for Parkman. Now, Webster was believed at the time to be mild-mannered. And the trial was such a sensation that when Dickens came to America years later, the one place he wanted to go in Cambridge was Webster's laboratory to see where Parkman had been killed. And we love literary anecdotes, so let me tell you one that Longfellow wrote about going to a dinner party once at Webster's house for Halloween. Well, Webster had a little chemical fire on a table, turned the lights down, put his head in a noose, stuck out his tongue over the fire, and Longfellow thought this was very, very odd, but he was certainly in the Halloween spirit, as we are. Finally, Webster is convicted, and the charge to the jury by the judge, which is reproduced here in this pamphlet, is very famous, because it is the first time that a judge basically tells the jury that you should use a criteria called reasonable doubt. So the Webster charge, the reasonable doubt charge, came out of the trial because it was all circumstantial evidence and dental records and things, and they didn't really know. Webster eventually hung, and not only the most famous Harvard professor to be convicted for murder, but probably the most famous murder of the 19th century America. And we have a book. His book, his own book, inscribed by him. All right, that was a good start to our Halloween-themed Buy Day. You've got two more choices. Do you want the pirate or the witch?
Let's do the witch.
Okay, we're going to do the witch. The witch is next, and the witch is really cool. So this book just looks like a book of spells and potions, doesn't it? It has this nice, sturdy sort of binding on it, very nondescript.
Yeah.
You could have blood red. You could have it on your shelf. Well, it turns out it is a very interesting herbal, but it's not just any herbal. It is an herbal that was edited by a gentleman by the name of Sibley to talk about its medicinal and occult properties. And Sibley was an astrologist, a bit of an alchemist, and also wrote basically used these herbs to create a series of potions. Now, throughout the book, we're doing skeletons here for Buy Day. There's some wonderful drawings that Sibley did of bodies, probably dissected cadavers that were taken from graves around London. And throughout the book, there's also a series of recipes for herbal concoctions. And I said the book was owned by a witch, and that's because there are these wonderful annotations that you can see in various places throughout. But we're going to get, and lots of beautiful hand-colored descriptions of the various herbs. But I'm just going to show you here, Amanda, something that's very important, because he talks about basically, can you read this little footnote? It says, the occult virtues of saffron and sage are admirably combined in the solar tincture. And this is what this book is really about. It is about creating a solar tincture. I'm going to show you a picture of the solar tincture, which was then sold by apothecaries in London. And it's perfect for Halloween, because you know what the solar tincture did? You can read the ad. It says, Sibley's reanimating solar tincture supersedes every art and invention in all circumstances of suicide, sudden drowning, apoplexy, thunder and lightning, assassination, dueling, drowning, apoplexy, all of it. This is the medicine which will not fail to restore life, provided the organs and juices are in a fit disposition for it. So there is a book which told you how to bring people back from the dead and concoct all sorts of witches' brews. And our final book, owned by a pirate.
Yes.
Should we get right to it?
Yes, please.
This one's just neat because who has books that were owned by pirates? This is a book that is Elizabethan. It was published in Renaissance England. It's a series of poems, but it was owned by a person by the name of Sir Henry Mainwaring. And Mainwaring was a pirate. And he raided ships off the coast of Gibraltar and Canada and Ireland, and was eventually given a pardon by King James, who followed Elizabeth. And do you know what he did in exchange for getting that pardon?
I don't know. Did he
wrote
hunt
a
pirates?
book about how to trace and hunt down pirates. And his number one rule was, don't give pirates pardons. So I don't know. It seemed a little self-satisfying, that. But a book actually owned by a famous Elizabethan pirate. And we're going to end with a funny book. We can do this really quickly, Amanda, but I loved this book, and I've been saving it for Halloween. It's a real book. It's Strangers Have the Best Candy. And it's an actual book about how all the best things in life you can learn and take from strangers. I hope everybody will come and visit us for spooky Halloween here at the Scholar. And I hope you'll watch next week and every week, Fridays at noon, for more adventures in the world of books.